To borrow a line from the great Brent Musburger, we are live right now with Victor King and Marc Lawrence on the Winner's Circle podcast. And so I'm filling in today for Sean Higgs. My name is Doug Upstone. For those that are unfamiliar, I'm normally here 2 days a week doing videos with the guys. And but got a special invite. Sean has something to do, so I am stepping in for him. And boy, am I lucky to have these two guys. These two guys are just legends in the handicapping business, been at it a long time. They've heard that ad nauseum thousands of times, but I don't think anybody ever minds hearing praise. Okay, that would be my guess. So, gentlemen, Marc, Victor, how are you today?
I'm doing just terrific, and I know Victor's doing quite well himself. He's back refreshed from a nice vacation trip up to Cleveland, where he met with the family at a wedding, and I know Victor's pumped up and enthused for the football card as well.
Excellent. All right. So now everybody should know that all three of us are at Gamblers World. There's 14 handicappers. And if you happen to go look at the leaderboard of the last 30 days right now, you will see all three of these people's names mentioned. I believe we are in number 5 through 7 right now on 30 days. So everyone here has been doing extremely well. And to have 10 of 14 handicappers showing money, okay, this tells you that Gamblers World is a great place to stop by and check out the handicapping selections for all the various sports, along with maybe signing up for some different packages of 3 days, 7 days, a month, any of those types of things. So we have that. One thing we definitely have going this weekend is a promo with Major League Baseball for the World Series of just $99 going through. Now, I will say that Marc Lawrence is on a spectacular 6-0 run. I'm a little bit behind him on this one, but still happy with my results, 11-3 on that one. So make sure that you check that out and see what we got cooking, okay, for this upcoming week here. Gentlemen, so what's Marc, we'll start with you. I know you've got some big things going this weekend. As you mentioned, you're looking forward to the weekend. So what else do you got cooking for this weekend for football, baseball, or whatever you got going?
Well, lots going on right now. As you know, Doug, you can throw NBA into the mix as well, and soon college basketball, and that means we won't be getting any sleep pretty soon here. But, I love the fact that college football is just about at the midway point of the season. So if you handicap statistically, you love that because the stats are beginning to become meaningful in a sense. National Football League is really gaining form right now. I think they're beginning to separate themselves from the pack, the wheat from the chaff, if you will. So I think it's a great time right now to be handicapping. I love going into the month of November, and this last week of October, it sets all that up.
Excellent. Victor, how about yourself?
Well, first off, we got to congratulate Marc. Georgia, last Saturday, 5-star college football game of the month for October. Nicely played there, Marc, on the Bulldogs. You saw what they did on the road in Austin against Texas. So very, very nice. As far as our totals go, our King Creole 4-star over of the week last week was in the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings game. Final score 31-29, another high-scoring NFC North battle. We hit that one. And as far as what we've got going this weekend at gamblersworld.net, once again, we got another Friday night college football totals play. For some reason, we've done well in these Friday night games, 6-1 on the season in our Friday college football plays. So we got that up ready to go if you're looking for a nice totals play this evening. On Saturday, we've got an over the total in the high noon, 12 o'clock games. We've got another over the total in the late afternoon kickoff games. And then on Sunday, we do have a big one, our 5-star NFL game of the month. It's always a totals play. It's usually an over, and that is the case this week. Our 5-star NFL game of the month. It is going on Sunday. It's already up on the gamblersworld.net website. We're hoping we get a repeat of last week when we brought home of course, the Lions and the Vikings over the total.
Hey, that is absolutely fantastic, Victor. So, guys, wish you nothing but the best of luck. Yours truly has won 4 of the last 5 weeks in football, both college and pro. So, on just some nice runs there. Not outstanding numbers necessarily, but you know what? Winning numbers. Okay. And ultimately, that's what you want to do. You want to win. So, do that. I mentioned, with the baseball. And like Victor, I also have a play going on Friday night in college football, and is my totals play of the week. So, that's available at Gamblers World. Who knows? I'm not going to ask you, Victor, but maybe we're on the same game.
Maybe.
but have that. I got a World Series selection for Game 1 tonight, and then tomorrow I have a high noon live underdog ready to go, along with my 10-star game of the week in college football, which goes Saturday night, and I got one on Sunday in the NFL. There'll be others. As soon as I get done with the show, going to wrap the rest of the stuff up. So here we go. Guys, before we get into our selections for the NFL on Sunday, I just wanted to, we're approaching the halfway point of the season, and I just wanted to get, some of your thoughts maybe on, what's going on, and from a gambling standpoint, more relating either to, let's just say, coaches, some bad teams, just kind of a feel for what you have as to what's going on presently.
Well, it's the time of the year, Doug, right now when I think you can begin to prepare awards, if you will, at least mid-season awards, college football-wise. There's some teams that have been deeply disappointing coming at the top of my head. Oklahoma State inside the Big 12 Conference. They were picked to finish third in the conference, and they're going to do all they can just to try and salvage a winning season. And that with 20 starters coming back, they were really well fortified. I'm really mystified at what's happening at Oklahoma State this football season here. Then you got the surprises. You got the Army-Navy tandem being undefeated at this stage of the season, both ranked in the top 25. That's absolutely terrific for the college football. You just absolutely have to eat that up. And it's nice knowing that these two teams might play each other twice this year, their annual rivalry and also in the conference championship game. So that's really, really nice to see. On the flip side, college football, to me, you see some of these teams that are a bit maybe underachieving. Alabama might come to the top of the mention here. A lot was expected from Caleb DeBoer, and this football team already has 2 losses in the season. So the question you have to ask yourself is, can Alabama run the table? And would 2 losses running the table be good enough to earn them a slot in the college football playoff ranking? It probably would. All you have to do is finish in the top 12. So you know what Alabama's focus is going to be there that way. And I love the topsy-turvy world in college football, Doug, where it seems like we're getting to the stage right now where it's every week or every other week, a new number 1 team is going to be in the AP ranking polls. We have the Oregon this particular week. After they upset Ohio State, they got nice and fat with a week of rest to absorb all that stuff. So we'll see whether or not they play with a lot of conviction this Saturday. All in all, there's just a lot to eat up here. And like I say, statistically, I just devour myself into all of the stats that I'm eating up right now.
All right. Excellent. Victor, what are your thoughts?
Well, Mark mentioned college football. For me, this is the time of the year in the NFL when I start looking for some of the NFL coaches who may be on the hot seat these days. And if you ask me just 3 or 4 names that jump off the top of my head, even though they won last week in London, you'd have to think that Doug Peterson, for us up there in Jacksonville, his seat is pretty much scalding. I know they got that much needed win, but here you got a defense who's ranked dead last in many different categories. And I know it's Ryan Nielsen's first year as their defensive coordinator, and injuries have been a factor, but there's still way too much talent on defense for this Jacksonville team. And if you ask me, I think the Doug Peterson hot seat is currently scalding. I would also include guys like maybe perhaps Antonio Pierce of the Raiders. We know it's hot in Big D always, and Mike McCarthy's seat there in Dallas is probably getting pretty warm. I would also include perhaps a guy like Dennis Allen in New Orleans. We've never been big fans of his anyway, and after, of course, starting out the season with 2 huge wins, they've dropped multiple games now in a row, and I would definitely say that Dennis Allen's seat is on the hot side. But also, guys, from a guy who updates our databases, let me run through some of the NFL numbers real quickly if I can. Obviously, we're through 7 weeks of the season right now. And when it comes to over-unders, favorites, dogs, we're kind of pretty much split right down the middle right now. I've got dogs going 49, 55, and 3 ATS in the NFL. Again, that's pretty much split down the middle. If you remember the first 5 weeks of this season, guys, those big underdogs of 6 or more, remember at one point they were 16, 2, and 1 ATS? Well, those are starting to peter out a little bit here. They've actually gone 2 and 6 ATS now in the last 3 weeks. We had a question about jumping on board when you see a trend like 16 and 2 ATS, and Mark had some pretty good remarks about you don't really want to jump on a merry-go-round that's traveling 100 miles an hour. You want to get on that ride when it's going nice and slow. So the people who did jump on at that point when it was 16 and 2 have not been rewarded in the last few weeks. And finally, I'm the totals guy here. It's my niche. Way back in 2000 when a guy took a chance on me at Playbook when we were in Northeastern Ohio, he told me, find your lane, find your niche, find something you love in this business and stick to it. And for me, it's always been over-unders. And I published a newsletter for Playbook called the Totals Tip Sheet Newsletter. It's 6 pages. It's devoted exclusively to NFL over-under wagering. And the numbers this year in the NFL, we just had a nice 2-week period of fairly high-scoring games. The last 2 weeks were over 48 points per game on the average in the NFL, but things came back down to earth a little bit. Last week, only 6 overs, 9 unders, average combined points down to 44.3. And for the year in the NFL, we're pretty much split right down the middle like we are as far as the dogs and the favorites go. I've got the NFL games at 53 overs, 52 unders, 2 ties on the season. We're, again, pretty much split right down the middle. The couple of tidbits I do find interesting, the Sunday night games of the primetime games, the Thursday night game, the Sunday night game, the Monday night games. It's been the Sunday night games now over the last year and a half that have been the lowest scoring. Last season, Sunday night games went 5 overs, 12 unders, only 40 points per game. This year, we're retaining those low-scoring numbers. There's been 7 Sunday night games this year. 6 of them have gone under the total, so only 1 over. 6 unders, only 39.3 points per game. Quite the contrast when you compare them to the Monday night games, which actually have been about 14 points per game higher scoring than the Sunday night variety. Monday night games this year now 6 and 2 over under on the season with a 7 and 3, 7 overs, 3 unders, but a very high average of 52.2 points per game on Mondays. So there's some of our ATS results, some of our over under database results. And again, I can't say enough for the guy I'm on the podcast with in terms of finding a true mentor in this business.
Excellent.
Well, thank you, Victor. I appreciate that very much. And one thing, Doug, before we throw it back to you, Victor went through all the numbers and favorites, dogs, so forth and whatnot. Included in this bad run here of late have been home dogs. They've absolutely been stinking up the joint in the National Football League. When does this stuff turn around? Probably eventually it will, because nothing's going to stay up here forever. It has to always come back to the mean. As those red hot dogs of more than 5 points that Victor mentioned do. But people say to me, well, if you're not going to want to back them and you want to get off of them, you think they're coming back, what do you do? And I say, well, you don't step in front of them while they're hot. That's basically, right. Or they're cold. You don't use them when they're cold. You don't step in front when they're hot. You don't have to bet every game, but at least use that for some thought before you make your plays.
No, I agree with that completely. One thing along that same line that, and this is just a thought on this, with how preseason football, has went from 4 to 3 games, and then you take along the idea that, with the starters hardly playing at all, it seems like to me, and this is a trend I think possibly bears watching, is that like the first couple of games are like what was used to be the dress rehearsals, yes. Okay, and in the preseason, and so. In terms of a product, we're not getting necessarily a very good product to start the year. And I think there's a possibility, as if this continues to go forward, especially if they add an 18th game and take out one more week. I just wonder if we're going to see a lot of upsets on a fairly consistent basis the first couple of weeks, and what Victor mentioned, lower totals to start it, because there's just no continuity at all in terms of the offenses, in terms of how they're functioning. What do you guys think? Does that make sense to you at all, or no, or you think I'm off base?
Well, I think you're right on base with that. And, what you see now that we were down to 3 weeks of preseason and things got a little bit sketchy because, we lost what was dress rehearsal week. We never know what dress rehearsal week is now in the National Football. What's it going to be in 2 weeks or when they go to 2 preseason games? But what it's going to really, truly do is that if they do go to 2 games in the preseason, it's going to take a little bit longer to iron out exactly what each team is all about, at least statistically, because you got to play these players at some point in some time. And if they have to use the first week or 2 of the National Football League to do that, like I say, there's going to be an evening out process. It's going to be a little bit more extended. Victor, what's your thought about that?
No, I agree with what you said 100%. And some of the numbers from this season, they correlate with what you said. As far as our database goes, I pay a lot more attention to the 2021, 22, 23, and of course this 24 season than the seasons before the 2020 COVID season, because this is the 4-year period where, again, like you mentioned, we've reduced one preseason game. We've actually added a bye week in the NFL. The week before week 1 in the NFL, nobody plays. And that was not the case prior to 2020. So what you have in your database over the last 4 years is a lot more pertinent, if you ask me, than in the previous 20 years combined. And again, you can tell, look at some of the numbers in the first 3 weeks of the season. Week 1, only 42.8 combined points per game. Week 2, 39.6. Week 3, 41.5. They were the 3 lowest scoring weeks of the season, and they coincidentally were in weeks 1, 2, and 3. There you go.
All right. So I think we solved something. Okay. Now let's just see if it plays out. Okay. Let's get into our free picks. Okay. And we'll start with Victor, I believe has Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Victor, take it away.
Well, we've enjoyed our share of Tampa Bay overs this season. Who wouldn't, with that fantastic year Baker Mayfield is having? Ranked in the top 5 as far as QBR for the season as well. Tampa Bay home games this season, 3-1 to the over, combined 52.7 points per game. And Atlanta road games have been pretty high scoring as well. Now, they've only played 2 of them this year, but they've averaged 50.5 combined points per game in those 2 road games. The line has come down a little bit. We're in the range of 46. But rather than attacking the full game here, I think our value lies in the first half of this particular game. I'm showing a number of 23.5 points, and we're going to play this game over the total in the first half. Again, at that number of 23.5. We know how important, we know how crucial the number of 24 is in the NFL. So if the game does finish right on 24, you want to make sure you got a 23.5 in your pocket so that you can catch the winner in this particular game. And yeah, it's an early rematch of a game that was just played a couple of weeks ago. Remember, they played on a Thursday night, Atlanta and Tampa Bay, just 3 short weeks ago. In that game, guys, both teams combined for a whopping 41 points in the first half of that particular game. The final score was 36-30. There was 883 total yards. But again, in the first half of that game, it was a shootout. There were 41 points. So with the OU ammunition like that, we will confidently go over. On the year, these defenses, Atlanta, Tampa Bay, have allowed a combined 28.8 points per game in the first half of their games. And on offense, the numbers are even higher. These 2 teams have combined to average 30.2 combined points per game, again, in the first half of the season. So it's no surprise, therefore, that when you add Tampa Bay to Atlanta's numbers together, these 2 teams are a combined 10-4 to the over in the first half of the season. The timing is right for Atlanta. They got outstatted last week. They were held to only 14 offensive points against Seattle at home. Look for them to bust out their what I call a positive points regression in store for the Dirty Birds of Atlanta. And yes, I'm aware, guys, that the host Bucks will be out without their top two offensive weapons in terms of receivers. Of course, Chris Godwin out for the season. Mike Evans pretty much out for the season as well. But we're okay with that. Again, Baker's still having a great season. He's got other weapons like Cade Otton, the tight end, Rashad White. They got multiple running backs who can catch the ball. They got Jalen McMillan, a rookie wide receiver. I think they'll pick up the slack. And for me, the best play in this game is going to be over 23.5 in the first half.
All right, so everybody's got that. So the Atlanta and Tampa Bay over 23.5 for the first half from Victor. Excellent work. Mark, thoughts on that one?
Well, I couldn't disagree with Victor. In fact, anything Victor does total-wise, I couldn't disagree with, and I love his analysis, and I love the deep work, the homework that he does in situations like that. So it may be a little bit anti-contrarian or contrarian a bit, like Victor says. Without the wide receivers, how could you possibly think going over? Well, there's lots of fuel and reasons to do just that, and I concur with what Victor said.
All right, and this one I'm looking at. Mentioned the injuries. One of the things, and this kind of maybe tags along with Victor's thinking, is Mayfield has 5 interceptions the last 2 games. Okay, yep. So he has not been sharp. He's been trying to force more passes into areas maybe he shouldn't. And I think the Atlanta defense is going to be a little more, let's just say, ready to go, because they played very poorly in blowing that game on that Thursday night. I mean, they had the lead and just found a way to lose it in this one. So I think they are going to be primed, as Victor said, for a better effort here. I'm going to lean with Atlanta on this one, and I like the fact that Tampa Bay is 0-6 against the spread at home when the total is 45.5 or higher, and they are 1-8 against the number after they passed for 300 or more yards. So I'm gonna go that way with Tampa Bay, with Atlanta to cover in this one. But officially, Victor's the man. Over 23.5 for the first half. Mark, you're up to bat. Okay, we were just talking about the World Series before. You're up to the plate now. You have the Green Bay Packers at Jacksonville with the Jaguars flying home after 2 weeks in London.
Well, they've done a pretty good job, Doug, flying home after playing in London here since the international series has begun. If you take a look at their record, Jacksonville, when they come back after touching down from playing in London, they're 7-4-1 to the spread. So they've got their sea legs back in pretty quick order, have the Jacksonville Jaguars in the past. And in fact, the last 4 times they've done that, they've won and covered all 4 football games. So this is not a situation that they're going to be immune to. They know exactly what they're up against here. And I also like that. I'm going to be at Jacksonville in this football game, by the way. I'm going to fade Green Bay a little bit here as well. Number one, you've got in Green Bay, they've got the Detroit Lions waiting up on deck next week. And I think there's going to be a lot more focus that's going to be paid to that football game than this particular game, especially with Jaguars being down this year. And you talked a little bit earlier, Doug, about this horrible defense of the Jaguars, and it has been just that. They've allowed season-high yards in 5 games that they've played opponents in. But go backwards and look at that. They're beginning to progress nicely defensively. Their last football game that they played in London, they held the Bears to less than 300 yards of offense in the football game. So they're coming around. Jacksonville is coming around defensively because it couldn't stay as bad as it has. It's always that regression to the mean works its way into every handicapping aspect that you look at when it gets to be too wide, if you will. I think Jacksonville has all the makings of an upset here. And how about a win here, a win in London? Does that lower the flames for the seat that Doug Peterson sits on? I think it does. I think it does.
Victor, what do you think about that?
I'm not going to disagree with Mark said, that's for sure. In terms of the total, this is one of the few games in which the OU line has gone up from the opener, 47.5. The last time we looked, 49.5 to 50 points. It does look like obviously some action coming in on the over in this particular game. I'm not surprised. Green Bay still leads the entire NFL in explosive plays on offense. What's an explosive play, you ask? Well, an explosive play is a rushing play for 10 or more yards, or a passing reception for 20 or more yards. And again, the Packers are number one in the entire league in explosive plays. Not to mention the Jaguars are off 3 consecutive overs in a row. So I'm not surprised by the line move. I think it's a little too high for my taste. I'm going to probably lay off the total in this particular game. If I do play anything, I may join Mark a little bit with some Jags money, but also, hey, I'm weak like the next guy. I do occasionally like playing did I say the bad word? A parlay.
Oh boy.
But at the very least, guys, I try to play an individual player correlated prop parlay.
Okay.
So take a guy like Jordan Love. Let's assume he's going to have a big game in this particular game against the Jaguars. A correlated individual prop parlay is taking various segments of his props, parlaying them all together. Maybe over in his passing yards, over in his passing attempts, maybe over 1.5 touchdowns. In this type of parlay, you're not asking 3 different things to happen. All you're asking is for one thing to happen, and that's for this particular quarterback to have a good game. So, again, this may be one of the games in which I attempt a individual prop correlated parlay. But again, remember that we're not asking for 3 different teams to win. You're asking for just one player to do 3 different things. So this is one of those games where I may take a look at a 3-player prop parlay for Jordan Love.
I like it, Victor. I'm a prop player myself, and I like the way you're thinking about that. And generally speaking, I'm in agreement with you on with Jordan Love having a strong game. And I watched Jacksonville, at least parts of that game, because I'm 3 hours different in terms of time here in the West for when those games started. And Jacksonville, I mean, you could see some signs of improvement, but I still looking at that defense and watch them all year. And to me, they got more holes than a donut shop. Okay. And that secondary. So I don't know. I just got some problems with them. That total going up. The Packers also are, they have 17 turnovers that they force. So that's been tremendous. Okay. But defensively, they're only 15th in total defense. So it's not like they're really doing a great job. And they're tackling at the line of scrimmage, I would put as poor, okay, in this one. So for myself, I like the over in this one, and I'll back it up with the thought here that the Packers, they're 8-0 over the last 8 times they have won by 6 or less points, and they're 8-3 over on the road if they are off a victory. So I'm going to go over the 49.5 or 50 myself personally. Okay, great work, guys. Mark, I know you got something to say.
Well, I was going to say this, that people will ask, why is Green Bay only a 4-point favorite in this football game? They look like they're playoff bound, and Jacksonville looks like it's going to be all they can do to stay out of the cellar. And when some things are obvious, I call it ABO, always beware of the obvious. The number is there for a reason. It's the odds maker. The odds maker does his work and he does his homework. And I don't ever second guess the odds maker. He's the sharpest handicapper that you'll ever run into in your life are the Las Vegas odds makers. They do their work. They crunch their numbers. They know exactly what they're doing. So all I'm doing is handicapping the number that he put out, not saying it was right or it was wrong. But the most commonly asked question I've had so far this week is, why is Green Bay only 4 points? My answer, it's there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. That perfect description from Marc Lawrence on that one. So always keep that in mind. And don't forget, Marc Lawrence, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a legend in the business. And the only reason that he's still around is because he's been that good all these years. And just exactly like Victor King, also being such a tremendous totals player to boot. All right, so we got one more game to go. And before we do that, I just want to make sure that everybody takes a minute to go in and hit the like button. I think we're trying to give you a variety of different things to talk about here, to think about for this upcoming week. And so hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, take the time to do so. Subscribe. And then once you have done that, go into the settings, hit that alert bell, and boom. Every time we have a video, which is, I believe, 6 days or six or seven videos a week over 5 days, you'll be alerted to when that exactly happens. All right. So make sure that you take care of business and do that. Next up, the Cincinnati Bengals are hosting the Philadelphia Eagles. Boy, this is a tough one to me. You got two teams here that not really sure where they are. And their recent, at least to me, their recent performances don't give you any indication. The Bengals have won their last two games. They came against the Giants and the hapless Cleveland Browns. Eagles, they beat the Giants last week, 28-3. Does that move the needle for anybody? It certainly doesn't for me, okay, in this one. Cincinnati, to me, though, is inferior at the line of scrimmage. And where that's a problem is, and it shows up, they have gained 74 yards rushing or less in 4 of their 7 games played. And they've given up 119 or more yards rushing in 5 of their 7 games. Now, maybe Joe Burrow and that great Bengals passing game can bail them out because we've seen the inconsistencies of Philadelphia here. But, Philadelphia is as healthy as they have been since week 1. They're number 2 in rushing offense in the NFL. Saquon Barkley is just red smoking hot, okay, all season long, running the ball. Jalen Hurts has great mobility. His passing still leaves a little to be desired here. But you know what? I like the underdog here. I'm going to recommend that as a play. So take Philadelphia plus the 2.5. And as Victor was talking about with props, I have one myself that I bet earlier in the week. It's not as good a deal right now as it was earlier in the week, but Saquon Barkley for over 94.5 rushing and receiving yards. I happened to go look at it just to check it before we did the show. That's up all the way to 99.5 now. So that's a significant increase. So I'm not the only one thinking that. And believe me, I had nothing to do with the line moving. I still would recommend it at that price, but the lower price was certainly better, but I like that one as well.
I agree. Go ahead. I agree with you, Doug.
I
agree with your side in the football game. It's a little bit difficult because you have Cincinnati scratching and clawing to get back in a race that it looks like they can possibly take second place in their division in. Battling Pittsburgh there, of course. But look inside this game a little bit deeper here. And what you have is, I don't know if people realize, is the Philadelphia Eagles are the only team in the National Football League this year that rank inside the top 10, both offensively and defensively overall, statistically. And a little bit also here, Victor, let me ask you this. The last 2 times these 2 quarterbacks played one another, it was in the Sugar Bowl when Joe Burrow threw 7 touchdown passes and won the national championship.
Wow.
Do you think Jalen Hurts might want to have something to say about that?
Well, I know that was high scoring, but
yes.
I think this game's going to be a little lower scoring than people think. Let me see it. Open 49.5. It's down to 48. There's even a couple of 47.5s out there. It sounds like some sharp money is driving the line on the low side. I'm not surprised by that. Philadelphia's best under numbers have always been in their road games. In fact, Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, last 31 road games, 11 overs, 20 unders, including 3 intended the under in the last 2 seasons when Philadelphia is on the road. One more thing about the Eagles. They're the only team in the NFL this year that has yet to score a point in the first quarter, guys. 0 points in the first quarter this season for the Philadelphia Eagles through their 6 games. As a result, I may take a look at not just the first half under. I don't play quarter over-unders very often. But this is one where I may take a look at under 9.5 points in the first quarter. I just mentioned the Eagles have not scored a point in the first quarter this season, so it's no surprise that Philadelphia is 1-5 over under in the first quarter. But matching up against that, Cincinnati is also a very slow starting team. They've gone 1-6 over under in the first quarter this season. So that's going to be the thing I'm going to look at, is actually under 9.5 in the first quarter.
I may say one more thing, Doug, and I'll throw it back to you.
Go right ahead.
Sorry to jump in there. If you take a look inside these Cincinnati Bengal numbers here, and everybody's saying, okay, they're gonna become the Cincinnati Bengals of old, they are not playing good football. They've been out-yarded each of the last 4 football games in a row. This defense is mighty soft for the Cincinnati Bengals here. I don't know what happened to it, what disappeared and whatnot. They have no running game at all. The running edge is all to Philadelphia in the football game. So I have to say I concur 100% with your Eagles side in the game.
All right, excellent. And Victor, that is just wonderful information. I did not know that about the Eagles. That I, knew they were slower starts, but holy cow, no points in the first quarter. I mean, that is just, well, I don't know what to say other than pathetic.
Not only that, but you touched on it, Doug. Philadelphia is still trying to establish an offensive identity for 2024. What are we? You know what they are? You know what they are? They're a team that's going to run the ball 35 to 40 times per game.
They're a Saquon Barkley-led Eagles team is who they are.
That's who they are. You throw a couple of deep balls to keep the defense honest, but this is a rushing team now, Philadelphia.
Yeah, and it seems like, too, I think there was a lot of questions when Jalen Hurts came out of college, how good of a passer he would be. And I think we've all were surprised, his first couple of years, he was quite good as a passer. Yeah. Now, not to say that doesn't happen, okay, because it does. I remember, now I'm drawing a blank on the Bills quarterback, his name.
Josh Allen.
Yes, Allen. Is that he had for example, I remember he had a great year as a junior, okay, fantastic. As a senior, he had a poor year. Now, part of that had to do with all the receivers had left that Wyoming team, so I thought, is this guy really, going to be that good, for how he was supposed to be?
And he completed less than half of his passes in his senior year, as you mentioned, Doug.
Right.
It was head scratching.
Yes. Yeah. And so it was so, when you look back, and so sometimes, like a guy like Jalen Hurts, maybe the water level rose too high for him. Okay. And maybe this is who he really is. I don't say I want to make a firm decision on that, but I think by the end of this year, and for sure by next year, I think we'll kind of see where his career arc is likely to go. Yeah. From that. So, all right. So there's 3 big plays for you. So we have the Atlanta, Tampa Bay over 23.5 for the first half on that game. Mark likes the Jacksonville Jaguars plus the points over the Green Bay Packers. And I am taking the Philadelphia Eagles, okay, with the 2.5 to knock off Cincinnati. And quite honestly, I think they win the game outright to boot, okay, on that. All right, so many of you have been waiting patiently and putting comments and thoughts, and so we're going to start looking at some of the stuff here and answer some of your questions. Gavin chimes in here. Let's see here. How do you interpret early versus late line move for NFL games, and how does that influence your bets? Victor, I'll start with you. Got any thoughts on that?
No influence. It's just another tool. It's just something to note. But we can't let that influence what our play is. I try to do my handicapping without looking at line moves. And if I see something that kind of agrees with my side or my opinion on the total in that game, we'll note that. But I don't use it to completely change a play. It's just another tool in your arsenal, if you ask me.
Mark?
Well, most of the line moves are largely attributed to the sharps, the bigger guys. Whether it is or isn't remains to be seen, because there's a world of squares out there that love to bet the NFL on game day, okay? But it doesn't mean because the sharps bet a game that it's necessarily going to cash that ticket. I'm a Victor here. If you do your handicap and you like your game and the game moves against you, I have to feel a little bit stronger in my position about that because I'm getting more value to the football game. So I would, like Victor says, I would not let a line move influence me, none whatsoever. Just if you're strong about your play and it moves against you, just look at it as added value.
Just know that in the NFL, you're not playing a team. You're playing a number. You're playing value in the line. That's what you're playing, not on a team.
Yes, and speaking of line movement along the same line, Mark, you probably are unaware of this. I have done some work for Marc and for Playbook over the years. And one of the things that I did was line moves. Okay. Wrote articles for line moves. Well, Marc, at Gamblers World, I'm doing the same thing right now again. So
Nice.
I brought that back. And so, with those, so you can check those out at gamblersworld.com. Is where those articles are that you can find at both college and pro. And I give out free picks with those. But I agree with you, gentlemen, is that and I know you're not often called gentlemen, by the way. So just to have that out there. But anyways, the thing about what you said, line moves, is I agree. I don't think there's, let's just say, the continuity of trying to follow what sharps and supposedly do. The other thing that's really changed about that is that it used to be, because I used to follow this really closely, is that you could almost see when the sharp money was coming. Okay. And it would be earlier in the week. You check Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and if you saw the lines. And then what happened is, because of the internet, because of the popularity of sports, all of a sudden, then all these quote handicappers that on social media, they thought that they're going to follow these things. So then the money started to be increased to where it fluctuated. And the norm of what was no longer is, which goes in part to exactly what Marc is talking about jumping on, the trains, not too fast. Don't, take the time, see what happens. And this business is a continual evolution of flow. Okay. Things going in different directions at different times. So always be aware of that. Okay. So next up, we got Seahawks plus 3.5 this week against Buffalo. Any thoughts?
Victor?
My thought of the game is that I was looking at some of the weather reports, and it looks like this could be one of the more weather-impacted games. Not, again, touching the side. The total is a little bit on the high side, but from what I'm seeing, holy cow, it's anywhere from like 90 to 95% chance of rain in Seattle. Not only that, but winds 15 to 18 miles per hour. It looks like the 3 spots in the NFL this week that may have the most wind impact are down here in South Florida when the Dolphins play the Cardinals, the game in Seattle that I just mentioned, and also the Sunday night game in San Francisco. It could be windy out there in Santa Clara when the Cowboys host the 49ers. I'm already leaning under in that particular game as well. But as far as the Chiefs and Bills games go, sloppy field would probably favor the underdog, particularly the home underdog who's getting more than a field goal, right?
I would agree with you, Victor. It probably would in that sense. My biggest concern is this. There have been a handful of moves that have happened here recently with wide receivers being traded to other teams out of need, Kansas City, Buffalo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. To me, it appears as if Amari Cooper joining Josh Allen looks to be a real nice marriage there. It was very, very productive last week. It happened. And now he's got a go-to guy. I don't know what happened to Amari Cooper with the Browns. He became disgruntled. I don't know if it was contract, playing time, who knows what. But anyway, they're no longer, that relationship is dissolved. But I think there's a nice marriage in the making there with Allen and Cooper. And for that reason, I'm going to stay out and watch this game, because if it evolves and becomes what was a Stephon Diggs, Josh Cooper top tandem, Buffalo could end up getting their back in their groove. They could find their groove here again. So I'm going to use this, Doug, as a gauge game just to watch the game. There
you go. Okay, I think that's a good thought process there. Seattle. Boy, I mean, they have a nice looking team. They do a number of things well offensively, extremely well. But that weather thing, and imagine it raining in Seattle in late October. Who would have ever thought that?
Oh, come on!
I mean, so yeah, I'm kind of on board with both of your guys' thinking here. I mean, the 3.5. I still think Buffalo is better just overall. Okay, as far as a team, that travel thing adds a little intrigue there. And if the weather's, is what Victor's talking about here, I would think that the under has some possibilities on that as well. So
Right.
I'll join in on board.
Definitely. One more thing. Mark mentioned the fact that home dogs have been struggling in October. And it's absolutely true. I've got the numbers right now at somewhere around 316-1 ATS for NFL home dogs in the month of October. But again, it may have been a case here where it's too late to jump on that particular trend, because look what's just happened in the last 5 days. 3 of those 4 wins for home dogs have occurred in the last 4 or 5 days, right? On Sunday night, Pittsburgh was a home dog, beat the Jets. On Monday night, the Cardinals were a home dog, beat Arizona. And finally, last night, the Rams were the home dog and beat Minnesota. So you're too late to the party if you want to bet against home dogs these days. We may see a big trend emerging right here in front of our eyes in terms of the reverse, meaning there is now value on those home dogs.
There we go. Ninja 13 wants to know why are the Falcons only a 2.5-point favorite with their 2 key wide receivers out? I have a thought on that, but Mark, you can start it off.
Yeah, it does look a little bit cheap for Atlanta. I have to admit that everything is going on. But, the truth of the matter is there haven't been too many other teams in the NFL that have been as good of a dog as Tampa Bay has been. And I don't think they want to give that money away. The odds makers do. And I'm only going to go back and say there's a reason this number is only 2.5. I think the odds makers have a little bit of feel here for Tampa Bay in the football game, despite the fact that these 2 leading wide receivers are out in the contest. Atlanta's been a pretty popular football team from the get-go. I mean, when they acquired Kirk Cousins, their season win total went up. They've got really, really schedule-wise, they have one of the softest schedules in the NFL. So, again, I'm going to yield to the odds maker and say this number is there for a reason.
Victor?
Yeah, I have a theory, actually 2 theories. One being, and I don't think the line should have moved 4 or 5 points in this game like it has, just based on those 2 wide receiver injuries. I say it has because of 2 reasons. Number one, we just talked about it, the fact that road favorites have done so well in the month of October, but that's coming back down to earth. But number 2, the public, the odds makers, but more the public, they overreact to injuries in the NFL. Look at the Washington game against the Chicago Bears. That line is completely flipped around because Jaden Daniels is not starting, but a previous quarterback with NFL starting experience who looked fantastic last week is in Marcus Mariota. People overreact to injuries in the NFL too much in terms of totals, in terms of the point spread. It's next man up in the NFL. The second string guy is almost as good as the first string guy. So people overreact when it comes to major injuries in the NFL.
It's also that rally around the starting quarterback.
Yeah.
The first game back.
Look what happened this year when Malik Willis came in that first game for Jordan Love, when Andy Dalton came in that first game relieving Bryce Young. There's a natural organic bump or jump in terms of emotion on the team. Mark said it perfectly.
Yeah, and to your point that also there, Victor, this game opened with Tampa Bay and on the look ahead line at -2. So that's a 4.5-point swing. So it's not so much to me that the line is that, they should be favored by more. It's just, it did move a lot to begin with. Okay. So you had a significant movement there. And then, the other thing that I don't know, I'm just, not that I haven't been on board with this, but I'm more on board with this all the time, is a head coach, and then depending upon also the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. And I look at guys like Baker Mayfield, okay, where he seemingly has found a home, okay, in this particular offense, more so than anything else that he's done. And the one thing that I see with him and that I like is that one of the things, the criticism of him was when he was at Cleveland, he only saw half the field. Okay, that was the direction of the offense. And so when he first went to LA under McVay, I think there was a teaching process there that I'm not saying that he's Mahomes, but they expanded his peripheral vision. Okay, that opened it up so that he could see more of the field, has a better feel. And then in both cases, both in LA and now in Tampa Bay, they're letting Baker Mayfield be Baker Mayfield, which means running around, okay? Means taking hits, okay? Do you want your quarterback to do that? No. But you know what? That's how he plays his best. So from that standpoint, to me, Tampa's in a tough spot this week, but boy, do I want to take Atlanta minus a 2.5? Not really.
No, I don't think you do.
Right.
And the point about Baker Mayfield also, Doug, is how do the Cleveland Browns feel today when they had Baker Mayfield and now they got Deshaun Watson? I mean,
and for that money and for that length of time.
Exactly. And one little thing I'll throw in here real quick, a story I remember about Baker Mayfield when he transferred from Texas Tech to Oklahoma. He went to the Oklahoma football program. On campus, nobody knew who the kid was. Nobody knew who he was. And they were playing some intramural football. And he was watching the intramural football, and he asked the guys if he could play. They didn't no idea who he was. Okay, so obviously he took over for that football team that he was on, and he became Baker Mayfield. So just that Baker Mayfield story.
That's great. That's excellent. I like that one a lot. Okay, let's see here. Not quite on the name here. Looks like Lonnie. Let's see here. Left work early to watch the show. Well, thanks a ton, my friend. Okay, we really appreciate that. That's why we're here. I mean, none of us have to do this. We do this because we love doing it. We love sharing knowledge.
Exactly.
Because you know what? That's what this is all about. Is that everybody says, why don't you just bet your own bets? Well, most guys that I know do. Okay, mm-hmm. But you know what? Right. Nobody's Elon Musk to where you could take $1 million or more and go or a few people and go and bet these games. So we do this, but we love sharing knowledge and trying to help people become smarter bettors. So that's the big thing. So thanks again, Lonnie, for that. Thoughts on the Jets and the Patriots going under from looks like Mar.
Okay, yeah. Thoughts on Jets Patriots under 41.5. I got some thoughts on this game, guys, and I think there's actually sneaky value on the over in this particular game. This is kind of what you get when a train wreck meets a plane crash, right? The Jets and the Patriots. I think you'll see a lot more points than usual, again, because this is about timing. And think about it. The look-ahead line, like you mentioned, was a 38.5. It's already up to 40.5. What does that tell you? There's action coming in on the over in this particular game. Now, New York, we got a new wide receiver in New York. The offense is as loaded as it gets, but their defense is struggling currently. In games 1 through 4, they allowed less than 16 points per game, the Jets. However, their last 3 games, the Jets have allowed 27.6. On the flip side, at least Drake May has provided some sort of a spark to New England and their offense. In fact, they've gone 2-0 to the over in his 2 starts, in which he's accumulated 5 touchdown passes as well. And on defense, the Patriots are another team that are allowing 25 points per game on the season, but in the last month of play, 29.5. I think there's actually sneaky value. And I don't play Patriots or Jet unders very often. This is one of those weeks we're going to consider it.
Nice.
Okay, very good. The on this one, I sometimes look for little hidden nuggets of information, and I read this week where after the game last week, Devontae Adams in the locker room got up and gave a speech. So new player, okay, tons of respect, I'm sure, about him. But he talked about, he goes, where's the emotion? Okay, where's the desire here? I mean, we're 2-4 coming to this game. Now we're 2-5, and we weren't ready to play. We were flat. Okay. And Rodgers talked about it also, that he was surprised that because he said the practices had been good. And so to me, this kind of feels like a rallying of the troops. And then you're being able to rally against essentially a poor football team in New England. So I think there's something here to where this offense could have some extra juice here and let's say put up some points on New England. And I'm a firm believer myself personally that this Jets defense is overrated. Okay. What they have done the last several years, they have earned the respect to be in this position. I just don't think it's particularly good. And one of the things that I know both you guys follow this, one of the things when you have a quarterback on offense in the NFL, the number, and he's a top level quarterback, the numbers tend to stay the same. They don't fluctuate much. But defenses, if you look at a top-notch defense, they seldom stay in the top 3 or 4 year after year. Something happens, whether it be players leaving, the free agency, maybe some guys getting older, injuries, whatever. And so they could still be very good defensively, but top 3 or top 10 is not top 3. So I think that's where you'll see some fluctuation. And I think seemingly, to me at least, the Jets seem to be in one of those situations.
Spot on. Great analysis, Doug. I love that. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see here. Okay, Marv back. Thoughts on SMU laying 11.5, traveling cross country over to Durham, North Carolina to face the Duke Blue Devils.
I'm with the Duke Blue Devils in this football game here, and I'm still trying to get a handle on this ACC Pac-12 whatever mergers have happened here. SMU, the new guy now in the doing all the traveling in the ACC. Duke has still got a lot to play for here, and that's a big number to me personally. They're in new territory. They've never been obviously in a ACC territory like this here. I think this is a great spot for Duke to stand up and maybe pull the rug out on SMU.
As far as the total goes, I am leaning toward the over in this particular game. We almost made it a King Creole play. Not quite, but it got down to that final list where you're trying to weed out and not put out so many plays. What I do like is after making the quarterback change for SMU, they're averaging 46 points per game. Much respect to Duke and that very, very good defense that they have. Looking at their strength of the schedule, maybe those defensive numbers not quite as impressive. I mean, teams like Florida State, and I like the value of the over currently at the line of 48.5 in the game.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that, Victor, for sure. This offense is humming like it was expected at the beginning of the season. Their first game when they were at Nevada, I was literally shocked how their wide receivers were not getting open. Okay, in that game, they couldn't get any separation. I thought, what's the deal with this team? Well, as it turns out, it wasn't just the wide receivers; it was the quarterback holding on to the ball too long to throw the passes. So once they made the change and then added the added element of this quarterback being able to run the ball more, I think it dramatically changed their entire season. And SMU is the team now, or looks to be the team that was expected to be a quote unquote contender, at least in the ACC. And I think their offensive output would be very good. And, defensively, they're not bad, but they're not really good. So I think Duke would get some points. So, yeah, I'm with you. Over on this one.
I agree. I agree. And Manny Diaz taking over this Duke football team, they've got a new defensive presence about them as well, which I think makes them attractive take in this game.
There we go. Okay, John Putnam, Chicago and Washington over this week.
I'm not going to disagree with them. We just touched on this a little bit. You do realize that the look-ahead line in this Chicago-Washington game, when it was assumed that Jaden Daniels would start, would be 48.5, 49, maybe even all the way up to 49.5. Look at where the line is right now based on that quarterback change. It's all the way down to 43.0. Again, it's too much of a line move by the odds makers and by the general betting public. I believe there's now value on this game over the total. I agree with John on this particular one. Look what Mariota did last week in relief of Jaden Daniels. He came in late in the first quarter. He led Washington to 7 different offensive drives. They punted only once. He led them to 3 touchdowns and 3 field goals. They scored on 6 out of 7 drives with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, who went 21 for 23 and ran this offense like he had been starting since game 1. I do like the value now at over 43.
Mark, what do you thought?
Well, I see. I'm all over the Marcus Mariota situation in this football game. You couldn't ask for a better talented backup quarterback, I think, than he. Some people maybe say Joe Flacco's out there and he's done a great job, and I wouldn't disagree. But Marcus Mariota has been there before and done just that. He's a cool, calm customer, and I think he's in a perfect role here. Again, I'm going to defer all the totals to Victor in the game, but I think there's an over adjustment in this football game because of Mariota starting the game, and I do like Washington in the contest.
Yeah, I for me on this one, I have no idea. So I am literally punting, okay, on this one. That threw me off. Mariota, he has a ton of experience. He knows what he's doing. It's always for me though been about the execution. I don't know. I mean, he played so well. This talk about regression to the norm. That's how my feeling on him.
There's nothing wrong with punting, Doug. Unlike Washington, who hasn't punted very much this season.
Right. Well, let's just say, how about football in general now? How the game is being, how different it is in terms of punting or going for certain things. I mean, that's a whole show 4-hour video about all that stuff. So,
and can we get rid of this new kickoff rule too? I mean, my goodness.
Well, I'll go along with you on that premise, but I have one way to solve it or to fix it, is that you have to kick the ball in bounds. Okay, so you kick it, you take away if you choose to kick it into the end zone. So last year we were at the 25, okay, in the end zone. Now it's at the 30. Okay, make the penalty be to the 35 instead. So if you want to kick the ball in the end zone, you're starting at the 35. To me, that means you're basically 3 first downs away in today's game from kicking
field goal range, right?
Okay,
right.
So that changes the dynamic of that. And then if you force them to kick it in bounds, now you get more creativity at kickers having to kick the ball straight up in the air, basically, or a lot higher. And I think that adds a whole new element of excitement to the kickoff. I thought that was the solution before, and I think it is even more the solution today. So
let's have Jim submit that idea from Gamblers World to the National Football League, because it will add excitement to the game, and that's exactly what it'll do.
Yes. So and of course put my name on it, because everybody's going to say, "Oh, Doug Upstone said that." Oh, well, let's make it work. Anyways, gentlemen, it has been my honor and pleasure to do this with you. It's been a lot of fun. Learned a lot of stuff from both of you, as always. And so upcoming. So just I'll give you each a shot here. Let everybody know what you have going this weekend. Okay, and we'll get ready to wrap this baby up.
Well, I've got my featured 5-star NFL game of the month going this Sunday. And as Victor mentioned, it's right on the heels of that big 5-star play on Georgia last month. It's locked and loaded right now at gamblersworld.net. And Doug, I got to ask you real quick before we go to Victor here. I know you used to use this playbook stat and log. Do you still use it?
I still do.
Good. And my reason is this. We went back to the old format where we double pages for 2 teams, and I'm absolutely loving it again. I don't know.
I'm 100% agreement. And people say, why would you want to use a pen and paper and to write on stuff? And my answer is, why wouldn't you?
Exactly right.
Right.
Victor, what do you got going this weekend?
College football plays have actually we've got a higher winning percentage in college totals than we do in the NFL to start the season. We're proud of that fact. Again, we got a Friday night over the total in college football. That's available as we speak at gamblersworld.net. If you're looking for a noon over on Saturday or a late afternoon over on Saturday in college football, also available at the website. Like Mark, we've got a 5-star NFL game of the month going. It's always a totals play. It's usually an over, and it's an over this week. And again, it's also up on the website. And guys, I enjoyed my time here on Friday. Doug, nice being with you. Mark, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Victor, as well. And Doug, nice to catch up with you again. It's really good to see you. Absolutely.
And thank you. Like I said, the pleasure was all mine. So I'll just wrap it up by telling you, baseball play tonight, World Series Game 1. Got a play ready to go, 11-3 run. Like Victor, I have a total on Friday night. And as soon as we're off the air, I'm going to ask him what his play is, see if it's the same as mine, so that I'm curious, because I would love to support if it happens to be true. And then a 10-star play on Saturday in college football, a 10-star play on Sunday in the NFL. So we are ready for a big weekend. all three of us absolutely hope you have a fantastic weekend. Enjoy the games, and hopefully you could just make a ton of money, okay, using some of the stuff that we talked about here or your own personal handicapping. So thank you to everyone for watching. Very much appreciated. I will be back on Monday with Sean Higgs and Chip Charubis on Monday to do the video here at Winner's Circle. Let's get it done. Here we go. Let's get some winners, fans.
Let's rock and roll, guys. Have a great weekend.